Brian, we did want to chat to you about the new rules in Gaelic football. You're on the Standing Rules Committee. The vote this Saturday, really the pivotal one as to how many of these rules, if any of them, actually make it through to the National League. Just before we get into them, what is the actual process this Saturday? Is there 5 separate votes on 5 of the different rules, or is it a one-size-fits-all vote for the National League?
No, I would imagine, I suppose we're at the stage in terms of the committee I was on. We're at the stage that we are no longer part of this process right now. I suppose we brought the rules to management. Management agreed them, and Central Council agreed them for the provincial cups and the National League. Then I suppose after that, as you all know, there was discussion had, and that the 19th was marked in the calendar as a time where we would actually review the provincial cups and see how they went. Now that's going to be an independent review from Rob Carroll, who's a statistician that was used in the process. And after that, I would imagine each of those rules will be voted on separately.
What's your take on why there's been such a negative reaction to the rules, Brian?
I suppose, guys, there's a number of things really, I suppose, in the fact that there are a lot of them there. We don't like change at the best of times. And I think maybe 5 rules at one time might be difficult for some people to swallow. But at the same time, even before, I would say there was negativity even before any game was played from some quarters, and that's fine too. And I think the committee was very, very, very realistic in understanding that this is going to be a difficult sell in terms of the level of change we spoke about. But at the same time, I think the committee was extremely, extremely, extremely concerned about where football was going, and I think that was our biggest driver, the fact that there was a feeling that football was turning into a complete possession game, which is fine. It's fine if that's the way people want it to go, and I suppose that's the democracy of the GAA. If that's the way we want our game to go, then let's leave it go that way. But right now, I suppose the committee was put in place to actually examine robustly what's actually happening, and then put in place rules or rule changes that might allow us to the game to evolve maybe in a different direction.
Yeah, because some of the things that have been said, and it is, I'll admit, all inter-county managers really that have really grabbed the headlines over the past couple of weeks, have been extraordinary, really. Declan Bonner saying it's a waste of time. He says it's crazy. I don't know how 10 men can sit around a table and come up with the 3-hand pass rule. They can't have much to do. And there's a couple of other things which I'm not sure if they're true or not. We might be able to get you to clarify this. I presume it wasn't just a case of 10 men sitting around a table kind of floating ideas out there. Like you mentioned Rob Carroll there was a lot of thought and information that went into this.
I suppose I read at the very start that people were claiming that the actual methodology was almost too academic, and I would imagine that was maybe a slight at the committee chair and the fact he's a professor. But I have never been involved in something that was so robust and so well thought out. And very quickly, it went from discussion and video analysis to engaging county boards, engaging the head of the referees authorities, engaging players through the GPA, engaging managers. All managers were written to, only 12 responded. Then I went into a period of trial games where these were videoed and recorded, and we came back and watched all them, those who couldn't get to the games live. And, the methodology behind the decision-making process, I would say, would stand up anywhere. And I think that's the most crucial point. And I also would say that we had worked out that I think there was 162 games between the provincial games and the National League, and a trial like this needs that length of time to actually say this rule is good or this rule doesn't work, because with any rule changes there are going to be unintended consequences, and you can't predict what they are going to be before you see them in action. So even in the trial games, there was on the kick-out there was a different rule put in place first. We watched trial games, it was fair to say that some of it was unworkable, and we said, okay, that needs to come out. And I suppose that process will still be on the table at the end of all this, I would imagine.
Turlough O'Brien then said it was a tactical ploy to propose 5 rule changes because you know that not all 5 of them would get through. Is that true?
No, I don't think so. I think each one of those rule changes, I think, there's desire from the committee that I was on and all the meetings that we were at, that hopefully that the 5 of them will get through. And it wasn't a case of we put in 5 to get 2. No, we put in 5 because we felt they were the reasons that they were aids to turning the game into somewhat of a contestable game again, because we felt, yes, managers are complaining about it, yes, maybe inter-county players are complaining about it, but it's all our game. It's all our game. And I think, we need to be cognizant of that. The game belongs to everybody, and I think when you have situations where people are just, it's a bit like what I spoke about earlier with Cork, that there's an apathy about football, and hurling is blowing out of the water exponentially in terms of the way it's going. There was a feeling in the committee that this belongs to all of us, and let's have an experiment. Let's have an experiment in the provincial championships or the provincial cups, and let's have an experiment in the National League. Now, I know how important the National League is to everybody, but it's our only opportunity to experiment. So, are we just going to say, it's fine, let's leave the game be a possession game where you can keep the ball for 3 or 4 minutes and not give it back to the opposition? That's fine if that's what we want. But a lot of people don't want that.
Yeah. Like the great irony, of course, in all of this and the reaction from the managers is that, as Malachy Clerkin pointed out in his piece yesterday, that there was only 12 responses from inter-county managers, despite the fact that the Standing Rules Committee wrote to every single one of them looking for feedback on the proposed rules. The one other thing I wanted to ask you, whether or not it's true or not, Brian, is Kevin Walsh's statement that television pundits are having too much of an influence on the game. At any point were you influenced by what was said on, say, the Sunday game last year?
No, none whatsoever. No, I would hand on heart. I don't know how many meetings we must have had. But at no stage was comments from pundits or comments from games at halftime or after games. None of that was ever looked at. This was a very, very robust methodological process where we went through step after step after step before coming to an agreement through a democratic process of deciding what we want to put on the table for experimentation. It was as simple as that.
One last thing, you mentioned there that your work now is done effectively for this process. It would seem to me that it would make sense that rather than waiting for everything to reach the crisis point that it's reached, and I think everybody agrees that the game is in crisis at the moment, that maybe a standing rules committee could tweak things year on year and take forward all the information and knowledge that you've had, and whether or not the committee changes and the makeup of that committee changes, but there's some continuity so that a few people have been in the room over a long period of time and said, yeah, we tried that and we had that conversation and here's why we didn't go with that in the past, so that this knowledge is propelled forward, and next year there's one rule change that people are talking about.
That's exactly what happens. Like the committees are put in place by the president when he comes in, so his term is 3 years. So this is a 3-year committee. Now, many of the committees that I'm sitting on have been on the previous committee as well, and the previous committee to that. So all of that knowledge moves forward, and I think that's the way this committee is so important. I think it always will have somebody who's been on the previous committee. So, this is a tranche of rules that have been looked at for the National League for this year. The committee again will meet again in very soon in the next number of weeks and start the process again for next year in terms of looking at, even if these come in now on Saturday, they'll still have to be re-examined.
Yeah, so you would hope that they are allowed through on Saturday, and then at the end of the league campaign everybody can sit down with a proper sample size. Exactly.
Like as I say, I think it's in around 160 games. I think that will be plenty of games to give us trends and give us an analysis to happen. Now I know people will be saying, we've seen already from the McKenna Cup, or we've seen from the McGrath Cup, that this doesn't work and that doesn't work. I would just, plead that we're given a longer trial process.
Well, that makes sense. Brian, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks, lads. Thanks a million.
Brian Cuthbert there giving us some thoughts on the situation in Cork and indeed the rule changes. It'd be terrible for the rule changes not to come through. How are you going to get people to serve in that committee ever again? Do all this work, do the analysis, go through everything rigorously, give everybody the opportunity to have their say, get snubbed, bring the rule changes in, get snubbed again.
Yeah, there is a lot of talk, and it has become the line of this debate about addressing, the cause rather than the symptom. But within the rule changes and within the implementation of them, there will also be causes and symptoms. And one of the causes for the early teething problems we've had with these rules is the referees not having enough help. And that may boil down to a more elementary level as well in the wider scheme of things. But in terms of how the game is played, in terms of the attractiveness of the game, referees failing or not having enough help is not the reason why Gaelic games is not an attractive enough prospect, but it might be the reason why these rule changes aren't effective enough, and these rule changes are there to make the game more attractive. So I think we need to be patient, and I want to see them involved for the National League.
Yeah, and look, there are going to be mistakes. It's one league campaign, and then at the end of the league campaign, there'll be evidence-based decision making as opposed to, well, I've thought about this for 15 seconds and I don't think I'm going to go with it.
And games on TV, everybody will be able to watch full games of this whenever they want, rewind it, watch it again. What sort of an impact is this having?
So here's a video that Ben McGuckin put up. It is the referee blown for 1 and 2 hand passes in the Derry Tyrone game. So this 3 hand pass rule has to go. The inconsistency of refereeing is shocking. If top officials can't keep it up, how will club level refs cope? Roll it there, Oisin. So that's a kick pass. There's a hand pass. 1, 2. Referee blows it. Ref, you bollocks. 1 hand pass. 2 hand passes, 3 hand passes, kick, and then a dribble, looking for the kick pass, dribble, hand pass, 1 hand pass. So there you go. That's it. I mean,
that should have obviously been spotted, but like. Maybe there's a learning process for referees as well. Like, I'm not sure what the learning process is that you get 1 hand pass wrong. It's just probably just a momentary lapse.
Just to point out, Ben McGuckin is he plays football for Glen. He's an ex-Ulster GAA coach, co-founder of Oakleaf TV, head of performance analysis at Derry GAA, and has an MSc in sports performance analysis.
Yeah, well, to be fair, like we can see the video evidence there. The referees clearly got it wrong. So who's that? Eamon Brannigan, I think, was the referee there. Just by looking at the appearance of the referee, like one of the top officials in the country. Like it's
I don't know who the referee is.
Like it's as I say, a momentary lapse. But like we've seen the evidence there. It was got wrong. Maybe like just getting used to these rules might help the referees a small bit even, and that'll eradicate glaring errors like that.
Or do you take it out of the referee's hands and say that it's the linesman's job to count the hand passes?
Yeah, like
Kieran Brannigan.
Kieran Brannigan. Eamon Brannigan is a Galway footballer.
There you go. Definitely not him.
Yeah, so like maybe do linesmen already have enough on their plate?
No, they're not doing anything. They're just lusting after the main gig in the centre there.